sometimes when you're in like a really fancy studio environment, it's really intimidating, and it's like, oh my God, do I play this like $6,000 guitar? Like, what if I play it wrong? You know what I mean? Like stuff like that. Not that that's like common $6,000 guitars, but it's like, I've been to really nice studios, which has been really lucky, and I'm glad for those experiences. But this just worked out so much better because it was really just like, and we all stayed in the house together. So it was like me, Sam, and Lars, and then Sam's partner, Hannah, who's an amazing person. The two of them are incredible cooks, and they would cook gorgeous meals for us every single night. Like Hannah in particular, we'd be tracking upstairs and we'd just hear Hannah downstairs like making the best fucking meal ever.
Hello again, and welcome back to Season 5 of The Record Process. This week, we sat down with Kempner of Palehound to discuss their newly released album, Eye on the Bat. We dove into how Elle has continued to develop their songwriting prose throughout the years, opting to be more themselves than ever by striving for a new level of honesty in their writing on this record. We hear all about what it was like starting to get attention for their music at a very young age, and the imposter syndrome that inevitably comes along with that. We speak in depth about the tracking and mixing process, of course, on this album, hearing how the band achieved a uniquely personal live feel with this record. But we also discuss Elle's journey in confronting the idea that as an artist, you are the product you are selling, and how it's not easy coming to terms with the consequences of putting too much energy into thinking about what you're supposed to be, not only as a songwriter or performer, but as a human being. We hear how all of this collectively made up the mindset that Elle went into this record with. And while the resulting record can obviously speak for itself, sometimes it's nice to have a little reminder of how we got there. The task of making a great album is rarely a solo endeavor, and companies like Audio Movers help empower musicians and creators by streamlining their workflow together and enabling them to make more efficient and informed creative choices. Famous for their groundbreaking collaborative plugin tool, Listen To, Audio Movers have made it possible to stream audio files in real time directly from your DAW to anyone, anywhere in the world. And recently, Audio Movers have expanded their dynamic plugin suite with Inject, an impressive audio routing solution that allows users to route audio in and out of any channel in your DAW. And alongside Inject stands the newly updated Omnibus 2.0, a software application that turns your Mac into a virtual patch bay, making it possible to route audio between applications and hardware seamlessly. And you can get 25% off Inject and Omnibus right now by heading to audiomovers.com and entering the code RECORD-PRO at checkout. So as you already know, we do a lot of talking about the creation of original music here on The Record Process. I mean, that's kind of our thing. But it can also be fun to put your own spin on an old classic and tell the world something else about yourself through something like a cover song. Cover songs can be a really interesting way to connect with your existing fan base, or even a way to put yourself in front of new audiences through shared musical tastes. And our friends at DistroKid have made it super simple to upload a cover of your favorite song while allowing them to handle all of the back-end licensing work that can really be a headache for independent artists. DistroKid will notify the composer and publisher of its release, they will pay the necessary licensing fee, and they will take care of all the other legal red tape involved with releasing a cover song on a streaming platform, allowing you to fully focus on enjoying the process of putting your unique artistic spin on that recording. If you're already a DistroKid member, you can access this as you're uploading your track for $12 a year per song. Or if you're not yet a member and you'd like to sign up for DistroKid, you can use the link in our show notes to get 30% off of your first year's membership. Elle Kempner is joining us from Brooklyn, as we may be able to hear on this call. We've already heard some great, authentic Brooklyn sounds out there, but we are very thankful that you've taken some time to join us today to chat about the new record, Eye on the Bat. How are you? Let's start there. How are we doing?
I'm pretty good. Like you said, I'm in Brooklyn, and I've been living at this spot in Bushwick for about like a year and change now. And I've been, I've been off the road for the past like few months, almost a year now. Just, we did some kind of return tours after COVID, but they were all just kind of disastrous. And so we took a break, but I've been, just kind of living here and going to as many shows as possible, just trying to like be involved with the music community. And I've been teaching guitar on Zoom. But yes, I do love this city a lot, but you are going to hear some city noise because I live on a loud street. I have like a beautiful apartment with like a balcony that is like way cheaper than it should be because of that. Probably.
Love that.
Yeah.
We love that.
Mm-hmm. It doesn't really bother me, but for this stuff, it's like, sorry. I'm sorry about that.
No, and that's totally okay. We're no stranger to that. Tom is in South Philadelphia right now. I'm nestled in the Atlanta suburbs, so the only thing you're going to hear would be bird sounds if I opened a window.
Wow, that's so nice.
Which is nice in its own way. But so you mentioned some kind of post-pandemic touring, trying to get back into that. Of course, so many of us. Obviously, it's been such a wild period, but we're wanting to go back before pre-pandemic days, right? To talk about where the making of this new record started, because you're a pretty prolific songwriter yourself, put out a number of releases at this point. And we wanted to kind of first start with the setup of the previous record and kind of how this record ended up being different and why this record turned out different in a number of really interesting ways. So why don't you take us back to how the start of this record kind of came about and where you were at, in your life and coming off the previous LP and all that?
Yeah. So this one, Eye on the Bat, was the first song that I wrote for it was actually like right as the pandemic hit, because we had been on this tour. It was like a headlining tour. So, it's all very linear. Like we had been on this. I mean, everything is. That's kind of a stupid thing to say, but in terms of like these all really tied into each other, action consequence wise, where it was like, we put out Black Friday in 2019, and we had our, I had my headlining tour scheduled for March and February of 2020, and that was like our first time getting to headline the shows on that album, and we were like finally selling out shows for the first time in like my whole career essentially. I mean, we've had a couple sellout shows, but like in terms of like a tour that's doing well universally, like it was kind of like the first time, and then it just got totally cut right in the middle by everything shutting down, like right before the string of like really good shows was about to happen. And so I was just totally heartbroken, and by the time COVID had hit, we were already in Oregon. So we had to like road trip back across the country, like 45 hours or something. Like as the country was shutting down, there were like McDonald's drive-thrus were closed. It was like unheard of. We were like, are we going to be able to stay in a hotel tonight? So that was the mindset that I went into this record with, was like total upheaval and just like, just like lack of control and just feeling really like all of us were feeling. I'm not even going to say this was like a unique experience. I think all of us just had our shit rocked. Am I allowed to swear?
Yeah, fuck yeah.
Okay, cool. I think all of us just like had our shit rocked like so bad. But this was like a particular way that mine was. Yeah. And so I kind of processed that initial heartbreak into a lot of songs. And that's how this process got started. But like when this album got started, I didn't even know if I would even have a music career anymore. I was like, maybe I'm just writing songs just for me now, which was like liberating in its own way. But there was a lot that really set up this particular record, and the way that it happened as a result of that experience.
I feel like that's a topic we've broached with so many artists, specifically on this podcast, because it's kind of how this podcast started.
Yeah.
So like during this time of writing, I guess in the past with like Black Friday and with your other releases, were you like primarily doing all the songwriting and then bringing it to everyone in isolation? Whereas like during this process, it's like a forced isolation.
I was always kind of an isolated songwriter. I've always kind of been like that just because it's been my form of like essentially journaling since I was like a kid. So I didn't really like start doing music like in a band in high school or something where I got used to collaboration early. I was kind of a loner. So I'm very structured around lonerism that way, until I did the Bachelor record with Melina from JSOM. And that's when I really learned like the beauty of collaboration and how fun that can be, and kind of let myself relinquish control a little bit. But, you know, in the past, I've always collaborated with people. Lars Brogan is my very best friend and bass player, and also played a lot of drums on the record, and is just like a total like genius multi-instrumentalist, and like an amazing person for me to have around, because I can just be like, you know, I'll have like a vision and then I'll communicate it and they'll execute, which is like perfect. And they're also just someone that I feel really safe and comfortable with doing that with. But the songwriting process, but that's like mainly for recording and like live stuff. Like the songwriting process is really, yeah, just very much so has always just been me.
Kind of in a vacuum. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
It's interesting. So, I mean, Tom, you mentioned kind of, you know, the great, like kind of shakeup, if you will, that, you know, that COVID gave all of us, like in music in general and in the arts especially. But some people respond to it differently. You dove right in though, Elle. And was there any, you know, were these songs that you kind of just looked at, okay, well, we're home, there's nothing to do, I'll dive in? Or, you know, was there a period where, you know, you felt like, do I bother writing? Or you kind of mentioned that it felt like, you know, you weren't sure even about, you know, a career or coming back. Would you ever play these songs live kind of thing? So what was the approach? Did you have some ideas that were cooking? You're like, well, I guess now's as good as time as any to get in, or were you starting from scratch?
No, I didn't really think about it that way. No, it was like very much started from scratch. And like, I'm someone who you know, don't really sit down and write a song in one sitting ever. I usually have a lot of time to really focus on that. But like the song The Clutch just kind of happened, and like in one sitting. And then like, you know, the song Write About You on the record, also same thing from that time. Because truthfully, on top of like the career turmoil that was happening, I was also having like personal life romantic turmoil that like totally coincided with all of that. And like it all went down at the exact same time. It was like the ball just dropped. And yeah, I ended up in kind of a tricky romantic situation going into COVID, without getting too detailed, you know. And so that was just on its own heartbreaking and inspiring. You know, heartbreak is unfortunately one of the things that really keeps me writing. I wish it wasn't like that. I wish I could write about happier things sometimes, but it just doesn't hit the same for me. So yeah, I needed to, because I was just so freaked out and emotional.
Yeah. And so you just kind of pouring out. So let's talk, because this is another interesting thing. You know, I think when it comes to talking about the juxtaposition of what makes this record really special and really, you know, unique in its way, especially compared to your previous records. You know, lyrically, there's some really, I mean, even just the way the record starts out, right?
Yeah.
Which I'd kind of love for you to talk about that track specifically if you can, but because it really gets your attention. But in this, you know, it almost kind of struck me where I was like, I'm almost listening to the lyrics because it's not dressed up in like perfect rhyme. You know what I mean? Like everything about the cadence of it, the melody, the delivery, the picture that you paint just forces you to listen to the actual words and the scene that you're kind of painting and drawing up there. And it has a really interesting, it's tough to say, because I'm sure it gives, you know, there's like a lightheartedness to it, and almost like a dark playfulness in. Can you talk a little bit about how, you know, how lyrically you kind of started going in that direction as opposed to some other, you know, maybe previously, how you approached it?
Yeah, I mean, it just kind of like it all kind of ties in also with that question that I was asking myself at the time of like, will I ever have an audience? Well, is this music that will be heard? I don't even know, you know. So that definitely made it a little easier to be very vulnerable, because, like I said, like those songs, like in the past, I had been like, okay, I have demos, I want to make a record, like, you know, this is like my passion, but also my career, and I have to be kind of like, you know, strategic about it to an extent. But like for this time, I didn't have that strategy in mind at all, because I was just like, the world is over. At the time, that's like when all of us were like, this is the end of everything forever. And so it definitely made it a safer space in my own brain for me to like be vulnerable and for me to like not shroud things in metaphor and not like, drown the vocals out with crazy loud shit. Like sometimes I do if there's a particularly vulnerable line. And that song, a lot of these songs were just so personal, at the time. And like that song, Good Sex, I didn't even think would make it onto a record ever because I was like, this is really personal. But then I was like, fuck it. Let's do it. Yeah.
I'm so glad you said fuck it, honestly, because
Yeah.
I mean, as far as opening tracks go and just tracks in general, that sets such a tone and in such a brilliant way, Elle.
Thank you.
But yeah, I mean, what you're kind of getting at almost, in a way, the idea of expectations, because you're coming off, like the biggest headline tour and the, off the previous record, right? Like there's a ton of momentum and it just gets completely chopped out at the knees, right? So it's almost like most of the time, and I'm sure obviously this and build this, like as you start to build out, your canon as an artist with any project, you start to one by one kind of build the walls of what this project is and what people come to know it as, right? It's always evolving, but sometimes it evolves differently. And sometimes it can be tough to evolve the further, in you get. It's almost, I guess some musicians talk about like painting themselves into a corner, right?
Yeah.
Like where they're just like, oh, I'm so known for this thing that now I don't know how to not do that exact thing, right? And then
Totally.
you get some really polarizing decision making. But I love the fact that it here, what you're describing is there was no expectation. You went in without expectation because it was a literal fuck it moment where, I don't know what these songs are ending. So they're just for me right now, that's kind of what you're describing, I guess.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, that's definitely, the case is that I think like in the past, like, cause I've been doing this since I was 19, like Palehound. And I mean, I've been playing music obviously, well, since I was like a kid, not obviously, I have been playing music since I was a kid. But Palehound started when I was 19, which is like really kind of young to start getting attention for music. And I didn't even really think that would happen. I just kind of made some songs, put them on Bandcamp, and people heard them. And then I ended up in a really cool music community with Exploding in Sound Records. And then that just kind of went from there. So I launched like a music career when I was 19, not really thinking that's what I was doing, which definitely makes that whole process of evolution like really has been something like on my mind, because it's like, I wasn't ready for it then. Like, I feel like I'm fully like, not, I feel like with every record, I'm more ready actually now for like songs that are like worth an audience or like worth the luck that I've had. I think like there's a lot of imposter syndrome where it's like, oh God, like there was so much luck involved. Like I have to be good enough for this. And I do think like while my records have gotten acclaim for sure, and I've had like, like a lot of success in a lot of ways, it also hasn't really hit like a safe spot yet where it's like, this is the thing that works. Like I haven't hit that yet. I'm feeling it a little bit more so with this record. Not that that was the intention behind this, which says everything, right? Is that like in the past when I've been like, well, what do I do now? People loved that shit I made when I was 19 and I'm 25 now and a totally different person. What if they don't like it? I just had to stop thinking about that, I guess.
Yeah.
I just had to stop thinking about what people thought and like, because I was just like, thank God I'm not the same person I was when I was 19, but I was like, I hope that's not a bad thing for everyone. But anyway, I feel like I'm all over the place. But what I'm trying to say is like, I have always had a fire under my ass to keep going. It's not like I've had a moment where it's been like totally affirmed, like this is it, and you did it. You're good now. That definitely has not happened yet.
No.
So it's like I'm keeping on striving. I'm keeping on being like, well, maybe like all this effort I'm putting into like making sure that I'm delivering is actually taking away from what I could be delivering. I don't know. I've learned a lot over the past couple of years, obviously.
Yeah. I mean, that's a lot. And I so totally hear you when you say that. I mean, evolving, I think it's very easy to forget. It's like you evolve and your taste as a person change, even though, the name of the project or the band, that is putting things out may stay the same. And at its core, it's, it's you behind these songs. And it's often to be the songwriter, to be the vocalist, right? To be at the nexus of everything that surrounds a project like that. Yeah, it can be really difficult, especially, to rectify what has come before with who and where you are now. It's not an easy task.
Yeah, it's not easy. It's just kind of like, it's not easy when it's, I mean, it's, I'm not complaining, but it isn't easy when you're kind of like, like when I look back at the record, the EP I made when I was 19, it's like, I wasn't even out as gay, which is crazy to think about. You know what I mean? Like, and the fact that I was even in a position to be sharing my thoughts and my personhood with the world at that point, when I was like not a fully developed person, I was like a major idiot. I think that is something that has been like, a very weird experience, because I've been doing this for almost 10 years and I'm not 30 yet. So it just doesn't make any sense to me. It's just like, it's just, and I'm just kind of still trying for, still hustling for it,
If you're an audio engineer or musician that's dedicated to creating and releasing new music consistently, then you already know that process can be long, complex, and often expensive, especially while you're trying desperately not to sacrifice the type of quality that is crucial for your mixes to stand up to those big budget productions. Producer and friend of the record process, Jay Moss, has reimagined these roadblocks to quality that plague us all. With the help of world-renowned sound engineers, Jay developed an AI-based platform called Monster, which offers you the ability to quickly upload your song and receive a high-quality mastered edition in minutes, all at a price point that won't break the bank with each new mix revision. The platform also allows you to easily collect feedback from clients and collaborators, and it even caters to the perfectionist in us all by allowing you to quickly compare and contrast different iterations of each track as you make those final subtle tweaks. So for a limited time this season, you as a record process listener can not only try Monster for free, but you can also receive a 20% discount on your first membership by using the code PROCESS on their website at checkout. So hit the link in our show notes or visit maastr.io for more info. So a lot of people think that Oxford Pennant makes, well, pennants. The triangular wool flag type things that usually have like a sports team's logo or the name of a place printed on them. Well, to be honest, that is what I thought too before my band The Wonder Years had the chance to work with them. Through that process, we realized just how much care they put into their beautifully crafted, iconic keepsakes that remind us who we are and why we do what we do. They've teamed up with some massive artists in the process, bands like My Chemical Romance, Wilco, and 21 Pilots, just to name a few. And they even offer custom shop orders for artists, companies, and unique events or special occasions. So please do yourself a favor and head over to oxfordpennant.com and use the code RECORD15 to receive 15% off your first retail purchase from their web store. Do you feel like in some interesting ways as a songwriter and a songwriter that you, especially with an album like this, where I'll go out and say, I feel like, you really brought out so much. I mean, obviously there's personal stuff across every song. I think anybody writes in their own way. Right. But I feel like it really kind of transcended to a new place with this. Do you feel like you're kind of living and kind of growing up almost in front of people with these songs as a songwriter? Because I think that's some things that's not easy. I mean, growing up and existing and just kind of evolving as a person is not always easy. It can be very confusing, let alone kind of having this rolling record of songs and things that are very personal, that are these almost time capsules along the way that are public facing, right? How do you find that, especially now, like you mentioned, with this project starting 7 years ago?
Yeah, I mean, almost 10, like 9, yeah, 8 or 9. Yeah, I mean, I think it's really scary, because it has, and it really fucks with my own personal life a lot and how I perceive myself, like, to be really real about it. It's just like, it is really hard to kind of like be like, you know, when you're like a solo artist or when you're any artist, you are the product you're selling, you know? So it's like, I wish it was just about like, is the music good? But it's also like, do I look cool? Do I dress cool? Do I do this? Like, there's so much bullshit with around it, like Instagram. I fucking hate it. I hate that I have to do that. It's a game that we have to play and it sucks, but it like does make me like self-aware in a way that has caused like some damage, you know, over the past few years for sure. And does kind of scare, like for this record in particular, my battle going into this was whether or not to like come out as like a non-binary person and use, you know, I've been using my they them pronouns with friends and community for years, but you know, I was like, is this even, can I even make this change? But if like people know me as this, and can I even do this? And then it's like, yeah, because I'm still like a developing, changing person.
Yeah.
But it took a lot of conversations, and I honestly pulled the trigger on that the very last second. I almost just went into this album cycle just saying, no, I'm just gonna not come out about that. And then at the very last minute, I was like, fuck it. Okay, let's just go. Cause I was like, cause that's just kind of like the vibe of this record is this record is very fuck it energy.
I mean, there it is again. It really is. And like, as I hear you say that, yeah, I feel like after listening to it, I'm like, it feels like there's a number of fuck it moments in there, but that all collectively have this great shift in them.
Yeah, I've put so much energy in my life. Like, what am I supposed to be for this? And I think there's like, you know, there's pressure on like quote unquote women in music to be a specific thing. There's pressure on queer people to be a specific thing. And so I think like with this record, I finally was just like, I'm just going to like do this thing that has scared me my whole life, which is just be only me and how I am in this moment, and just like let it happen and not try to put on a front or be someone else. Not that that's what I've been doing, but it's been like a struggle of like, should I be doing that? Should I be someone else? You know?
Yeah.
It feels very honest. And I think that comes across not only in the songwriting, but also in like the overall sonics of the record.
Like the weird shit that happened where it's like, what's that?
Yeah. And like, and
choice?
well, yeah. And like talking about like, just like fuck it in general, there's some beautiful like choices of sonic textures that like it seem very fuck it in a very well-intentioned way. And it adds that much character. So like, with that being said, how did you meet Sam?
Oh, how did I meet Sam? I love Sam so much. Sam is like, oh my God, just a perfect man. As far as I mean, no, that's you would not be happy if you heard this and heard me say that. but I mean, it's like I met Sam a really long time ago, like around the time I started Palehound. So like when I was like 19 or 20. So I've known him for a really long time. And when I met him, I was just like this. I actually didn't even meet him for a while. I'd heard his old band, Celestial Shore. I don't know if you're familiar with that band, but it's like fucking sick math rock trio that he was in, where like all three of them are just shredding beyond belief the whole time. And my friends had showed me that band, and I had their Bandcamp, their like 3-song EP on Bandcamp, just like on repeat all the time. And I was just completely obsessed with them. And I would go to a lot of shows and like be very scared to talk to him because he's so cool and he's so sick at guitar and everyone loves him and all this stuff. And I was like, I'll never get to like hang out with that guy. That guy's like too cool. He's like my hero. I'm not going to talk to him. And then like, he's the nicest guy ever. And we ended up playing a couple shows together starting in like 2014, 2015. So that's kind of how we got like a personal relationship, but we never really became close. And then when I was getting ready to do this record, we were talking about producers and studios and how to do it and where to do it. And Polyvinyl actually were the ones that were like, you're friends with Sam, right? Why don't you just do it with him? And I was like, damn, that's a really good idea. I should do that. And I knew I wanted a lot of creative control on this one, and I wanted to take a stab at producing. And the other people we were kind of talking to are more just like super hands-on producers. So I was like, let's just do it. Fuck it. Let's just do it with Sam. I'm gonna stop saying that. But like, but also that wasn't a fuck it. That was a huge W, because, and by W I mean win, because I love Sam and was so excited to work with him, and was really nervous going into it because I was like, this is my guitar hero, like actually. But then he was just made the best possible environment for me to make this record. He's amazing.
Oh, that's awesome. So yeah, so Sam Owens and the space that y'all did it at, Flying Cloud, right? Which I believe is kind of like up in the Catskills.
Yep, it's like outside of Woodstock.
Yeah, so talk about that. Like that area, the space, and what that process once you got in there with Sam looked like putting this record together, right? Because sometimes it can be a lot different. Obviously, a lot of it had been writing in isolation, albeit a different type of isolation maybe. But then you finally get to be with another, if not, one with Sam, but obviously more collaborators and people putting it together and kind of making the tracking. So what was the process like? What did Sam have a process that they wanted to approach it with, or how did you game plan it?
I mean, it was so chill is the thing, like in the past, I've always been really that's not true. In the past, I've never been like totally stressed making a record, but I have been stressed about time making a record and like, how are we going to fit all this into like the 2 weeks that we're spending this much a day on this like really nice studio and all this stuff. And Sam's studio is so nice, but also was at the time, well, actually his studio has gotten a lot fancier and like nicer recently because he built like a big barn outside of his house, and it's like a full studio now, like a real full, like its own building as a studio. But I'm actually kind of grateful for the fact that we were actually the last band to record in his house, because that's how he set up. Like the living room was the live room, and like there was like this small office where he had like his mixing board and stuff. It's just like in his house. It feels like being in high school and jamming at your friend's parents' house, and that was like the perfect environment to record these songs because it just matched the vibe still of just like very chill, not trying to be something. Sometimes when you're in like a really fancy studio environment, it's really intimidating, and it's like, oh my God, do I play this like $6,000 guitar? Like, what if I play it wrong? You know what I mean? Like, stuff like that. Not that that's like common $6,000 guitars, but it's like, I've been to really nice studios, which has been really lucky, and I'm glad for those experiences. But this just worked out so much better because it was really just like, and we all stayed in the house together. So it was like me, Sam, and Lars, and then Sam's partner, Hannah, who's an amazing person. The two of them are incredible cooks, and they would cook gorgeous meals for us every single night. Like Hannah in particular, we'd be tracking upstairs and we just hear Hannah downstairs like making the best fucking meal ever. It was just like felt like being at home. Like they created an extremely homey, cozy environment, and we would just wake up, take our time in the morning, started around like 11, chill throughout the day. It was very, very chill.
Yeah. How did you piece the songs together? What was the pacing? Kind of like one song at a time, start to finish, or what was the approach like?
Not yeah. I mean, like we recorded most things, everything live. The only song that wasn't recorded there was "You Want It, You Got It." I recorded that actually on this computer, just as a demo, and then it ended up making it onto the record, which was kind of funny because Sam was like, "I don't want to recreate this demo. I like the demo. Let's just mix this and make it this." And I was like, "Oh, okay."
Yes, love that. We love the
that's
demo
great
wins.
Energy. Totally, we love the demo wins, and we also love like a producer who's not a huge egomaniac about things and will just be like, this is the better version. We can't recreate this in a way that would be better than this. Let's just do it. You did it. Right. But also, no, I mean, we would like track live. So it was me and Lars, or me, Lars. We had Zoe Brecher play drums for a couple songs. She's an incredible drummer. But, most of the time it was just me and Lars, like Lars on drums, me and guitar, getting a live take, Sam on bass sometimes, Lars on bass sometimes. I don't know. And then we would like lay a foundation. And if we got like tired, we'd be like, oh, I can't listen to this song anymore. Let's just do it a couple days from now. So it was like, there was like no function. There was no real structure, no real pattern of how we worked at all. There were some days some songs we did in one day, some songs that took like the whole time. It just kind of like flowed. We were just kind of like, I don't know. What do you want to do today? I don't know. What do you want to do today?
That's awesome. I mean, it sounds like you kind of allowed yourselves and had the time and ability to chase the vibe and inspiration wherever everybody kind of like woke up and was at that day, which is not always, it can very much, maybe you've had this experience in the past, feel a bit too overly regimented and very like round peg square hole, and feel like you're like punching in and really just like methodically chopping away at something that before you know it you're like, oh, I don't even like this anymore.
And it's like, once again, what I was saying, like the pressure of like a fancy environment where you're like, this is an incredible honor to be in this like legendary studio, and I have to use this incredible gear, and I have to whatever. So this was like took it out of that context, which was awesome.
Ella, I love that. What, like, I think I'm gathering from just like you talking about the record and like hearing the record, there were so many like fuck it moments throughout the process that like, I don't know, the expectations of first, like not knowing what's going to happen next. And then also the expectations of like the recording process, I think it's such a beautiful, like, just like blend of vibe that created this. You know what I mean?
Thank you. Yeah, it definitely kind of worked out in a way that I wasn't sure if it would, because I was like, damn, I'm really relinquishing a lot of the control and perfectionism and work ethic that I'm used to having. So I hope that I actually get a good product. I actually kind of learned that fucking energy during the Bachelor process. I think without doing the Bachelor record, this record definitely wouldn't have sounded like this at all, because the Bachelor process, we went into the studio. Polyvinyl, the best record label ever. I'm like one of the rare artists I can say that I'm on like the greatest label. But they like fronted us the money for 2 weeks in a really fancy Airbnb to record the Bachelor record. We didn't have a single song going into it. So it was kind of like, damn, we just spent a lot of someone else's money and we don't have any songs. And that's kind of when that started. And then it turned out being really fun. And I was like, damn, I can actually just kind of trust the process, can't I? I guess that's true. So that's kind of how I learned that.
Oh, amazing.
Not to care as much.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really came to fruition on this whole record. So in talking about, things were maybe different. And so with Sam specifically and in this new space, were there elements, anything that comes top of mind that definitely really changed the direction of any specific song that came from Sam, or while you were there at the studio, maybe from the way something was originally demoed or written, that you kind of had a fresh take on it because you were kind of letting things come as they would?
Well, as much as I was letting things come as they would, I also did go in with some pretty fully fleshed out demos. But because they were just demos that I'd made during the pandemic when I was just like at home, and I was like, well, I might as well just have fun and like record a demo for this song. And then the demos kind of stuck. Like the Clutch, for example, it's almost exactly like the demo in terms of like, yeah, it's like electronic drums on the record on like the demo, but it's like the vibe is there, the dynamics are there. Yeah, everything just got a more live sound. I mean, the song that I feel like had the most transformation was probably My Evil, because that song wasn't even supposed to be on the record, or like nothing was supposed to happen or not, but I didn't even consider that for the record for a second. And then I was like, okay, well, what if we just try this one? And then we like spent the whole day just like, we don't know how the fuck to produce this song. This song is really weird. How are we going to do this? And then we kind of just spent the whole day like sussing it. That's the one that really had like nothing before we worked on it. That was the one that it was just like, all right, just pure experimentation. But most of them did have like kind of a foundation already going in.
Amazing. We always kind of like to highlight specific moments of that transformation process, but like that can happen at any point. So like after everything was tracked, was there anything like during the mixing process where something flipped?
Not really, honestly, because we were doing so much live recording, that it wasn't like we were really focused on making this sound like a live record in a lot of ways. So we didn't want to do too much fucking around and mixing. There really wasn't anything. There's not, I mean, I might like get off this call and be like, oh God, why didn't I say that one thing that I totally forgot? But like thinking about the whole record, no, there really wasn't a thing. Like we really went in, it's very raw. There wasn't a lot of editing. There wasn't like a million takes for a certain thing. Like, we just kind of were like trusted our instinct. Like the Independence Day, like that song, that vocal was a scratch vocal, which I was like, there's no way that's going to be the vocal. And then Sam was like, no, it's perfect. And I was like, no, it sucks. And he was like, but this is once again to bring back the theme of this. Sam was like, the song's about a breakup and you sound like you're just like, you don't give a shit. And you sound like, who cares if you hit a kind of weird note, and like it's fuck it energy. And I was like, all right, I trust you. But like even stuff like that, like we didn't even re-record some vocals, like we were just kind of like, what happened? Is that acceptable? Is that better than if we were to, try to perfect it? 100%. So we didn't do like much things just kind of came out and stuck that way, you know?
I love that. The demo wins again. The scratch vocal on the record. That's my favorite. And honestly, it goes to show, I think that is just, one more aspect of why the record feels so honest and feels so uniquely like what a show feels like for Palehound, and that's the idea. And I think sometimes it's easy to forget because there's so many tools at your disposal and you can do it again and again ad nauseum to try and get things perfect or try and play with things. There's almost option paralysis, but at the end of the day, most of the time, right. And especially in this case with this project and these songs, the goal was to capture a live band and what they sound like and that energy, and not overcomplicating it was actually the most important thing.
Yeah, all along.
Yeah, and I think y'all executed it really nicely. So
I'm just kind of like, damn, I was like, I'm putting too much effort into this shit. God damn it.
But it really worked because you weren't trying to overthink things, I guess,
Yeah.
And I think that almost feels like a theme across this record as well, with the honesty we mentioned, and then where the places that you went lyrically as well. And, they were really true to yourself and the time and place and everything that you're going through, and maybe had this like extra added layer of truth to it. So it would feel almost like you were doing those songs a disservice by trying to overly embellish some of them at times, and by doing it in a different way and trying to like re-record that perfect, take when the scratch vocal was exactly where you needed to be. So I love all of that. I mean, down to also talk to me about the album artwork finally. So this is also like kind of one of the favorite things I look at, and I'm looking at it here. I mean, it's colorful, it's adorable. It also, tell me about it, because, and for anybody, we'll, obviously include this, but go take a look at the picture and you'll understand why I'm asking about it. Because I love it.
I'm so proud of how the album art came out, even though I didn't do it. I'm just kind of like, damn, I can't believe that's like my album cover. Like, that's so sick. That's amazing. And it's by this incredible artist who I've known since I lived in Boston. Like, so their name is Godmother. They go by, and it's spelled Gaud, like gaudy, Godmother. Oh yeah, I met them when I was first like living in Boston, like 10 years ago, or no, like 8 years ago. And I met them through a friend, and I was like, that person's so cool. I'm literally, once again, this is another story of like, that person's so cool, I'm never going to talk to them. That's so much. So like Sam and their name is Britt, Godmother, like are two people that I've like been like a huge fan of. And Britt had actually done the Black Friday album cover. They did that mask for the cover. And so I was like, damn, that was like so sick. And like working with Britt's amazing. And I just like want to support them. And like, I want like to have the opportunity to do exactly what I'm doing right now, which is like, this is Britt, this is Godmother, and they make these incredible rugs. And that's what they've been doing like the past few years. They've really shifted their focus, like making rugs. And I'm always like, those are so fucking sick. And then I was like, what if that's the album cover? So I hit them up and I was like, could you do a rug as an album cover? Is that weird? And they were like, not weird. Let's go. Let's like do it. And then I kind of sketched up the design, a very rough sketch of the design of just like a van coming over a hill with a snake and the letters in the sky. And I mean, we collaborated on it. They obviously like did so much to bring it to life, but I was kind of like, maybe this kind of idea. And now it's a full-size rug that's hanging on the wall in my bedroom now, which is awesome.
How big is it?
It's like 4x4.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's big. And then we photographed it and then put it on a black backdrop. But I think they just took like an iPhone picture. I think it's like not even like a fully like, I don't even think the picture of it was taken.
I am so glad I asked, because honestly, in my head, it was maybe like, a 1 foot, like a 12 by 12 or something.
No, it's really big. It takes up like a whole wall in my room, and it looks great.
Oh man, we'll have to try and see if we can get like a picture of you next to it for scale of the real thing, because that is very neat and very cool. Everybody, you should now go forth and look at this, either where you're probably going to end up on, streaming it on Spotify or whatever. Just know that thing is actually 4x4.
3x3, 4x4. It's big, bigger than you think.
Yeah. Oh, well, it's beautiful. It's awesome. Thank you. I'm glad you glad you got a chance to share where that came from.
Me
That's
too.
really neat, and such an interesting take.
Godmother's Instagram is @Godmother for anybody who wants to see any of their other stuff, because they make incredible. A lot of their art is like it's like the same kind of medium, and it's.
Well, count me in. I was looking for it before, and now I can find it. That's amazing. Elle, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah, thank you.
Sharing the tale behind this record. Good luck with everything, and we're excited. We'll have to either Tom's in Philly, I'm in Atlanta the next time you come through. What else do you have in store for? I mean, the album comes out this summer. Is there anything? Where can everybody find more about either the album, yourself, online? Is there anything aside from @Godmother on Instagram?
Yeah, I'm plugging everyone but me.
I love it. It's awesome. Well, you knew that we were going to, put some links in the show notes anyway. You know how this works, but just in case anybody wants to grab something real quick while they're listening.
Yeah, I mean, I update my Instagram with stuff. So if you want to updates on music and tour and stuff, it's @Palehound. There's palehound.com that is very well maintained as well. And I kind of tweet some dumb shit sometimes, but it's not. Yeah, that's also @Palehound. It's pretty easy to find me. I'm out there.
Awesome. Well, good luck with everything. The new record. And,
thank you.
Yes, and I'm gonna go get me one of those. Tom, how do you spell it?
The cat cactus.
Cat cactus. It's a cat cactus. For all those that are like, is he having a stroke? What is going on with him? We were talking about this before, our shared love of cats, and Elle has a very cool scratching post that I needed to know more about. So
that my cat doesn't even want to use. He just wants to use the really nice couch that I bought as a treat for myself. It's really nice of him. He's demolished it. It's fucked up.
Then at least it looks really cool. Then you don't need a live cactus like I have, and you don't need to try to keep that alive because there's no places that it gets enough sun. Well, on that note, this has been lovely. Thank you for bearing with us and sharing all of that, Elle.
No, thank you.
We heard Elle talk about how freeing it was to find themselves in a place where they could be comfortable, relinquishing creative control throughout the recording process of this album. It's a really powerful reminder that you can't control how others will react. You can only control how authentic you are with the art you create and how honest you are with yourself while you're making it. It takes bravery to reveal your true self in the face of expectations. And this album shows Elle doing just that. Unabashedly releasing these emotions, these stories, these truths outward to the world, in spite of both the lingering musical and societal expectations surrounding them at the time. I think that the best albums and the people responsible for their creation are those who embody the courage to push against the grain, those unafraid to pave a new path forward, regardless of contemporary commercial success or even just the approval of others. And this conversation with Elle is a wonderful reminder that we can't please everyone all the time, so it's important to stay true to ourselves above all else. It also shows us how this album, much like the life of any creative, is a beautiful collision between the circumstances you can't control and the actions you do or do not take to document and process all of them. I really hope you enjoyed this interview as much as we did and can maybe find something in it to help you with whatever it is you're processing or documenting creatively right now. So keep pushing forward, and we will catch you next week right here on
The Record Process.